now.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and make this my full screen here, and the topic of today is going to be about millennial donors and the struggle to reach millennial donors and maybe some best practices for actually engaging them with your organization. So we'll have tons and tons of time for discussion at the end. We've got some great things to kind of just get your thoughts percolating on who those 80 million millennial donors actually might be. But first, let's go ahead and Ben, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you guys.
Sure. I am Ben Cohen. I am the Business Development Director at grassroots.org. You'll see you can connect with me at benjamin@grassroots.org. I am super open to talking to anybody through my email. I am not unresponsive unless I'm away like I was this past weekend. But if you ever have a question about for me or about Grassroots, just hit me up in there and I'll be glad to answer them. Or if you want some information about this webinar or anyone's in the past.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Jason Nicosia. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Commit Change, and you can email me, tweet me, Facebook me, LinkedIn me, however you want to best reach out. Love to connect with anyone. And as I mentioned, I'm in the Oakland Bay Area for the rest of this week. So if you're in the neighborhood, let's meet up for a cup of coffee and hang out in person. Ben, could you there might be some people who I know we've got lots of Grassroots members. And I know we've got lots of Commit Change customers who are going to be on this call. Can you there might be some overlap, but maybe you could tell us just a little bit about Grassroots before we jump in, and kind of maybe there's some people that aren't members yet.
Certainly. First, I want to say my appreciation to Avante Jackson, who loves the Sonics hat. I unfortunately lost that Sonics hat at a Panera Bread about 2 years ago, and have been devastated ever since. But Grassroots is a nonprofit ourselves. We're providing services to nonprofits nationwide to help them in their internet technology to build capacity. What we're trying to focus on is three areas: working with organizations to build their websites, expand their presence and awareness on channels such as social media and other avenues. As well, and finally optimizing their fundraising, which is why we've been so keen on bringing Jason and Commit Change on these webinars. The other thing that we're doing is trying to educate and bring more insight into different processes than for organizations. And that's what this office hours is hopefully about, to fill in the gaps of knowledge where people don't feel necessarily comfortable on the internet.
Yeah, just a quick little bit about Commit Change. We're a full suite web fundraising platform that really helps you to consolidate and optimize all of your fundraising data. So we've got a pretty great partnership with grassroots.org in that if you want to sign up as a Commit Change customer, you're actually able to get a discount if you register through the grassroots.org website, or if when you give us a call or sign up on the front end of our company, just let us know that you're a member of Grassroots, and we've got a monthly discount. It's actually almost half off on the on our service fees. But you can make a free account, collect donations, run ticketed events, build out crowdfunding campaigns, and there's some great donor management tools on the back end for you. There's going to be a pop quiz at the end to see who's actually created their free account at commitchange.com. If you're a nonprofit organization, you can have a free Commit Change profile. Last year, over 19,000 individual donors used Commit Change to support their favorite nonprofit. So certainly having a profile on the platform, whether you ever end up using it for the full capacity or not, is always a good idea.
Before we jump into anything else, Jason, I'd just like to. Sure. Yeah, mention, obviously we want the questions to be coming in. If you have a question about the slideshow, submit it. It's going to be in the questions pane. I'll just let people know so they kind of get a feel of how we're going to do it. We'll be unmuting people. So that means if you want to actually have an engaging conversation with us, we will unmute you. But if you don't have a microphone, write no microphone in front of the question. This way we can let you know ahead of time so we don't try to unmute you. But go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up again. Yeah, we want to have some good lively discussion at the end. So if you think of your question early and don't want to forget it, go ahead and write it in the questions bar, and we'll jump right into it at the end for the discussion time. And we'll keep the webinar on until the last question and the last bit of the discussion is over. So let's talk about millennials. Okay, there are currently 80 million millennials in the United States. And let's talk about who those people are, and then we can kind of figure out a little bit more about how to maybe actually engage them to support my nonprofit. So the first thing is, what exactly is a millennial? It's a person who was born between 1980 and the early 2000s, and Ben, I actually like to extend that maybe to the late 2000s, right? I'd say still some young adults who are even late high school are probably going to be considered that millennial generation. So what's different about millennials is, of course, they grew up in the age of technology, right? They're getting into high school, getting into college, starting to go out and get jobs right at the dawn of the age of the internet. They're a little bit different from Generation X in that they're very self-expressive, a little bit more liberal than previous generations, and very amicable to change, right? So they've seen a recession in their lifetimes. They've seen multiple global events happen in their lifetime, and they're all still fairly young, and still fairly new to the workforce. So another thing about millennials is that they're much more ethnically and racially diverse than older adults. They're also less religious and less likely to have served in the military. And we'll talk about that in just a second. I know that if those two things, you read them right off the bat, it's like, man, that doesn't sound like the best thing about these millennials. And full disclosure, I'm definitely in that born after 1980 age range. So I think, Ben, you may be skirting in there too. So
I'm an 86er.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
The millennial generation is also on track to become the most educated generation in American history. So what that means is that most millennials are getting college degrees, they're getting graduate degrees, they're very, very educated. Their career opportunities, and one of the reasons that we've seen that they are so educated is that a lot of the career opportunities have been pretty set back by the American recession. But they're more upbeat about their own economic futures as well about the overall state of the nation. So it's a very optimistic, very positive generation of people. So if you got some other things you'd like to add about what a millennial might be, definitely put it in the questions section there, and we'll address that as well.
Now, before you go on to the next slide, I mean,
yeah, sure.
But the one question that popped up into my mind, and I'd like to have a few seconds discussion about it, is what is important about like building a profile like this to understand about it?
Well, I think if you look at the landscape of fundraising as it is today and how a millennial donor, or even support, I hate to use the word donor, a millennial supporter, how they actually are going to engage your organization versus previous generations, and this is specifically, to nonprofits who have been around since 1980 and before, right? The way that you're accustomed to engaging with your supporters is changing, and it's going to continue to change more drastically over the next few years. And I think, I'm not sure if this is in this slideshow, but I think in the next 20 years, well over half of the workforce, I think maybe it's even 10 years, over half the workforce are going to be millennials, right? So these are the people who are going to be generating income and going to have the capacity to support your organization. And the way that they expect to be engaged, the way that they expect to be cultivated, right, as a supporter of your organization and to participate in helping your organization is different than we've seen in the past, right? Snail mail certainly is still effective to a degree, and you should always send your envelope thank you notes and that sort of thing. But these millennials are not finding you from mailers. They're not finding you from live radio ads. They're not finding you from they're not the these aren't the nonprofits that their parents supported. They're finding their own. So I think that's something that's important to understand, and we'll continue to talk about that a little bit. But
Sure.
the thing that makes it relevant to the nonprofit world is these are your donors. These are the people who you need to figure out how to engage, over the course of the next few years, and already 80 million today, right? So there's a percentage of your organization, whose supporters are millennials, and maybe if you guys could post up in the questions section there, I'd love to hear if you have some idea of what percentage of your individual donors or individual supporters are millennials. I'd love to hear that if you want to post that in the question section. I know that about 30% of all of our Commit Change donors are millennials. So 30% is a huge number. When you think of what with Commit Change, what we're doing is facilitating online fundraising. Certainly, we're going to have a little bit higher percentage of millennials participating because it's all online. But 30% is still a huge number, and that number is only going to continue to increase as more and more millennials join the workforce and more advance in their careers.
Well, let me ask you one more question before we move on. I certainly want to let you move on.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I already see one answer from Shelley saying about 5%. How would you do a non-intrusive way to get that information? Who your donor base is, between millennials or say the baby boomers or whatever else is out there?
Well, I mean, if you're a nonprofit and you're if you're doing any sort of fundraising, you need to understand what the demographics of your donors are. So whether you're collecting that on the donate forms or the volunteer forms that that people fill out when they join your organization, or whether you're polling your supporters, or whether that's just something you keep on your profile. I know a smaller nonprofit, and they really rely on major gifts. Every time they capture a new donor, they go on Facebook and find out their birthday so they can reach out to them on their birthday with a little message that's relevant to their organization. But that also allows you to help find the age of your supporters. So certainly, there's lots of different ways to track the age of your donors. But I know Shelley knows that maybe 5% or less. And Shelley, I'm talking about one of our attendees here, saying that she says about 5% or less of their donors are currently millennials, and they're trying to change that. So maybe Shelley can comment a little bit later about how they're actually tracking which of their supporters are actually millennial donors. So let's go to the next little page here. And we kind of talked about this already, right? Why are they actually important to my organization, right? I've been sending out paper mail. I send out 10,000 paper mailers a year, and I get 7,000 paper checks in the mail every year from my supporters who are, all the way from baby boomers up to Generation X to millennials. Why do I need to start focusing on this millennial group? Why is this even relevant to my organization? Well, the reason is that they are very active in the nonprofits that they support. So your average millennial is going to be very confident, right? Very sure of themselves that they can have a direct impact on your organization. So they want to be involved, and they're confident that they can affect change in your organization. So engaging them, right, when you're talking about cultivating a donor and building a relationship with a donor, millennials make for strong relationships as donors. Another thing is that they're connected, right? Your average baby boomer donor who's sending in that $100 a month and has been sending it in for 10 years, right? Who else are they recruiting to support your organization? How are they expanding your message to their network? Well, for millennials, that's super easy, right? They're doing it through Snapchat. They're doing it through Foursquare. They're doing it through Facebook. They're doing it through Twitter. They're doing it through LinkedIn. They're doing it through email. They're doing it through YouTube. So, a millennial donor, once you create a relationship and cultivate that donor that's a millennial, they might go out and recruit dozens and dozens of additional people to at least be aware of your brand and your messaging. So millennial donors are super connected. And then the last thing is that they're very open for and wanting change, right? Millennials want to change the world around them. They want to impact the world around them. So they see opportunities, and they want to be involved in those opportunities for change. So definitely, a unique donor that is going to be a highly engaged supporter of your organization, and maybe not just somebody who's going to be sending in that paper check. It's not You're not going to go to a millennial and engage them as a major sponsor or a major donor from day one. It's going to require massive amounts of relationship building and massive amounts of communication and inclusion in the mission of your nonprofit. Mm-hmm. So typically you'll see an organization is going to have a lot of millennial donors arrive as a result of participating in the organization with some different capacity, right? Maybe they participated in a crowdfunding campaign, or maybe they were a volunteer for the organization. It's only then that you're ever going to be able to cultivate that donor into someone who's going to be a major gift, a major gift donor for your nonprofit. So let's talk about some of the habits of millennials. What do they do? Well, we know that millennials are living their lives online, right? They're literally creating friendships, building relationships, literally even meeting their significant others, right, on the internet.
Yeah, whether it be good or bad. Yeah, that's the way we're doing it.
For better or worse, right?
Yeah.
They're watching videos online. They're sending and receiving hundreds of emails a day, hundreds of emails. They're not making phone calls anymore. They're sending text messages instead of making phone calls. They're watching all their television shows online, right? They're not even watching regular television. They're streaming all of their TV and movies on the internet. They're getting their news online. They're shopping for what they need online. This is, I have a cousin who's also a millennial, and he literally gets all of his groceries delivered to his front door through Amazon. Everything from toilet paper to milk to fruits and vegetables are getting delivered to his front door via the internet. So that and why this is relevant, right? Why all this is relevant is it's about instant access. It's about a millennial wants instant gratification, instant access to their news, to their entertainment, to their utilities, right? To the goods and services that they use every day. And the same goes for the nonprofits. They want instant participation. They want an instant way to have access to and communicate with the nonprofits that they're engaged with. So really, looking at the types of habits that millennials have, we can see that having a strong online presence and a strong online outreach plan is really essential for engaging those millennial supporters. And again, it's not just donors, it's supporters, because a millennial is not going to just be a donor. They're going to, when they commit to a nonprofit, they're going to commit fully. So what makes them different from previous generations? And this is, if there's one thing to take away from this little discussion, this will be it, right? If there's one key point to remember, this is that point. The most important difference between a millennial and previous generations is that millennials are shopping for their causes online rather than inheriting them from their parents, from their peers, from other people that they've had they're not inheriting their causes from previous generations. If you look at like for example, Ben, my parents' generation, well, all of the causes that they support, their religion, their political views, everything they inherited from their parents, right? So if they were a Catholic Democrat that supports Boys and Girls Club of America, that was because their parents were Catholic Democrat and supporting the Boys and Girls Club of America, and that's really changed because millennials are able to collect so much information online. They're able to make their own decisions. They are making their own decisions about the causes that they want to support, their political and religious views, their interests and hobbies. They're not things that they're just inheriting from their communities. And that's one of the reasons. And Ben, you and I were talking about this just a little while ago. Every attendee of this webinar has heard of Charity Water. Every attendee at this webinar has heard of Pencils of Promise. And most of you have probably heard of Invisible Children, right? All of these nonprofits are new within the last 10 or 12 years. And they're some of the biggest financially supported nonprofits in the world, globally. And why is that? It's because they're finding their supporters, they're marketing their cause online. So again, just a key takeaway, just remember that as you're building out your outreach plan for how to reach these, this new generation of supporters for your organization.
You could say like the community that these organizations are working through is different. I mean, a lot of people are consuming their media or building those relationships. A lot of these things you've talked about in the previous slides, some of those that you had showed were a new type of community, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube. They create communities where people engage through.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. I can go and ask a Reddit question, right? And I can say, I'm looking to support a nonprofit that provides food to in need families, and I can crowdsource the answers of other people. And I say, oh, look, I want my dollar to have the most bang for its buck, right? I want bang for my buck for my dollar donated. Well, I can go to Reddit and get dozens and dozens of answers on where I'm most likely to get bang for my buck for my donation. And so, as if I'm a small community food bank, that's what I'm competing with today. So I need to figure out how to be relevant to that donor, that lives in my community, and I need that donor to support my community, and I need to be engaging with them on those platforms where they're asking questions about things that are relevant to my nonprofit. So another thing to kind of know about is, and this is kind of just a continuation of what we've been discussing, is that millennials run in packs, right? They're very collaborative. They like to work together. And one way that we've really seen this just explode in the last few years, and is going to continue. I think 2015, 2016, these next 2 years, we're really going to see an exponential increase in the amount of crowdfunding campaigns that are out there, right? And why do millennials love crowdfunding? Why do they love doing their Kickstarter campaigns, their Commit Change campaigns, their Indiegogo campaigns? Why do they love that so much? Is because they can see their impact and they can collaborate with others to raise those funds, right? They like to work together to see measurable results that the crowd, right, the power of community can create, the results that the power of community can create. So if your organization hasn't run a crowdfunding campaign yet, if you haven't even experimented with a crowdfunding campaign yet, go to Commit Change, make a free profile on there, and create a crowdfunding campaign to raise $1,000, right? Don't start with a $100,000 campaign. Don't start with a $1 million campaign. If you haven't done a crowdfunding campaign go and pick one specific element of your organization and try to raise $1,000 and see the two different really factors that make a crowdfunding campaign different from the regular donations that your nonprofit's going to get via those Generation X donors who are sending in the paper checks, or even the millennial donors who are donating on your website. Is a crowdfunding campaign is going to revolve around a particular story that has an emotional impact with the potential donor, and those millennials love to see that impact. They love to see that their dollar is having a direct impact on the organization that they support. So and then of course the other element is that there's an actual fundraising goal in mind. And millennial generation is very goal-oriented, very career-oriented. So being able to see that their particular donation has impacted a certain percentage of that final goal is incredibly important. So for those of you nonprofits, I know a few of you have commented in the question section here that you're really just a very small nonprofit that's kind of just getting started. A crowdfunding campaign is a great way to experiment with that millennial demographic. So another thing about them running in packs is they live in an era where ideas and ideals can be spread via the internet, right? And this is kind of what we were talking about before. Ben brought up the great point about the Reddit conversations, where, whereas I used to get ideas and my ideals from my local community, right? Everything from religion to political views to my peers that I hang out with to the ideas that I have about charity and philanthropy. I can now get that via the internet, and I can have literally Skype calls or Google Hangouts with nonprofit volunteers and the people that nonprofit is impacting globally. So millennial donors are very aware of this, and they're getting their information via the web. They're getting their ideas about what philanthropy means to them via the internet. And then the other thing is that they can find and connect with like-minded people online. So again, creating that community around your nonprofit, whether it's a volunteer community or it's just a Facebook group where people share photos of the Habitat for Humanity house that they worked on. People like to connect with a like-minded community online, and it's very easy for them to do. It's not geo-specific. So something to consider when you're building out the the relationship cultivation piece of your organization.
Yeah, and also I'd just like to jump in with like creating some of these communities and getting started isn't very difficult. A lot of the tools out there I see on this next slide, Google Plus or Facebook with their Facebook groups. It's pretty easy to start crafting that where you can have an engaging conversation with a person, where you don't need to be running a crowdfunding campaign to stay in touch with them. So easy to get going.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, even like we were saying, everybody here should have at least a personal Facebook profile. If you don't, get out and get a personal Facebook profile right now. Don't even listen to the rest of the webinar. Go make a Facebook page. But you can very easily go and create a group around that, right? Or just like we have the hashtag GR nonprofit. I think what is our hashtag? GR nonprofits.
GR office hours. And if you have anything you want to post to it.
I'm looking at it right here.
Yeah.
GR office hours. Yeah. Even creating a hashtag around your organization to build community is a great way to to recruit those new people and create relationships with that online community. And these millennial supporters, this demographic of people, this age group, they're more than just a donor. Right? Millennials can be an online advocate for promoting your cause, and the funny thing is, these millennials are so fickle that they'll go and retweet a crowdfunding campaign or retweet a story about your nonprofit, and they won't even donate themselves. So what that means is I can go in and I can say, man, I love this organization, grassroots.org. I think their mission is amazing, and I find an appeal from them online that they're raising $10,000 to add servers so they can have more nonprofits as members, right? Well, I'm just as likely to go and say, hey, this is great. Oh, I love the mission. I'm bought in. I am a supporter of this organization. How do I support your organization? I go and take 0.2 seconds and I retweet the tweet, right? And that is that, and millennials feel like they're having an impact on the organization, and of course they are. It's not the same as going and writing a $100 check to grassroots.org, but that's how they're advocating and promoting the causes that they believe in. And so keeping an eye out for that and jumping in to cultivate that relationship when appropriate is super important, because a millennial is not just going to get a letter appeal from you and send in $100. They really need to be engaged in the mission of your nonprofit, and they need to have multiple engagements before they're going to be willing to donate any of their hard-earned dollars that they had to go and get, not just 1 degree, but 2 degrees to earn. And so really, the millennial donor is going to require a lot more cultivation and a lot more relationship building and a lot more impact stories than than your baby boomer or Generation X donor. So we already talked about this. Everything is mobile, right? In 2015, everything has to be mobile friendly, from your website to the donation forms that you use to a crowdfunding campaign to having your donors be able to register for campaigns or events or volunteer opportunities. Everything is going to be mobile. 85% of this millennial generation from 1980 and later, they have a mobile device. They have a smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, right? They're surfing the web. They're watching TV. They're talking, texting, and using social media, all from their mobile device. So making sure that you're able to engage somebody where they are most comfortable is tantamount to the marketing for your nonprofit. And it really comes down, Ben, like we were talking before about that engagement. It comes down to marketing. The reason Charity Water and those other organizations are successful is not because their mission is any more or less important than the next organization who's doing the same thing. It's that their marketing approach has really resonated with the millennial donor.
They've started there, yeah, very early. But building mobily is easier and easier as the years have gone on. There's tools that can help you.
It really is. There's website tools out there to make your website mobile friendly. When you're using a tool like Commit Change, all of our donate forms, our crowdfunding campaigns, even our reporting dashboard, is mobile responsive, so that whether a fundraiser is on the go, going to their next speaking engagement or their next volunteer, coordinating opportunity, they can manage all of their Commit Change fundraising efforts via their mobile device. And the same goes for Facebook, Twitter, any of those apps where those social apps where you're going to engage those millennial supporters. They all have apps as well. They're all available on your mobile device. So there's really no excuse to not have a strong mobile presence and have your donors be able to engage your organization via mobile. Of course, like I said before, if your nonprofit is just getting started, you haven't run a crowdfunding campaign, feel free to go over to Commit Change, make your profile, and just create a test campaign, and just even just to look and see what it looks like on a mobile device, so that you can see what millennial donors, and I'm sure a lot of our attendees, I would venture to guess a lot of our attendees are in this millennial age range. Just to go see what it looks like and see what it means to have a mobile responsive site that a millennial is going to be comfortable with engaging.
And by the way, we're about to wrap up the first portion of this. So if you do have some questions for us, post them into the chat. Again, write no mic if you don't want to speak. You would rather have Jason or myself read it out loud. We certainly love to talk to you. Also, if you have a question that's a follow-up to somebody else's, we'll try to get to that first to keep a flow to the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I'd love to get, if there are nonprofits who are having some success with engaging those millennial donors, I'd love to hear from you as well. At Commit Change, we have a few hundred or a few thousand fundraising campaigns or initiatives going on at any given time for the nonprofits that we work with. But we're still once removed from that experience. So if there's some nonprofits out there that are having some great success with engaging millennial donors and really having some success with that relationship cultivation, I'd love to hear some of those best practices as well.
Yeah, you might say something that we've missed, or might give somebody information that can help really propel them, and be more meaningful than anything that Jason or I have said.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have just a few best practices here, right? These are just this is just the tip of the iceberg. But how do I get a millennial to support my organization? The first thing is that you have to be able to meet them where they are, and you have to know where they live, which is online, right? We've already talked about this. So if you want to engage millennial donors, you have to have that internet presence. You have to be engaging them online. You have to have original content that's easy for them to digest, right? And that brings me to the next point, right? The content that you're providing to the millennials, it has to be something that's easy for them to digest. They're not going to go and read a 10-page paper about some wonderful story that your nonprofit had this great impact. They're not going to watch a 10-minute video. They're going to get sidetracked by that funny cat fail video on YouTube, and they're going to click right off of yours. So think small snippets of content that are easy to digest when you're thinking about what types of content to provide for your donors. And one great way to develop content is to develop impact stories, to explain and show your impact. So because millennials really expect that, and as we mentioned before, they expect that transparency. If you don't explain your impact, they'll go find it on their own. And if they don't like what they see, they're going to move on to support a different organization who is providing greater impact. So when you're when you're telling these impact stories, be super transparent and super direct about what that donor's dollar is going to do, what that volunteer or what that retweet, right, is going to do for your organization, and show impact stories that millennials can easily relate to. The next thing is create options, right? So make it easy for your supporters to donate time or funds, right? Because time is a donation as well, even if you're asking for them to share a story, right? So as we said before, a millennial they're looking at a retweet as, they're super engaged in supporting your nonprofit, where, I know a lot of you on the webinar, it might be like, oh, well, retweet, anytime I post something, it gets retweets. Well, a millennial is thinking that that's engaging with your organization. And so, coming up with specific asks for a millennial that might not necessarily be just the dollar up front, it is also a great way to engage them. And in a millennial's mind, these have the same value, right? Because their time is just as valuable as their funds. And millennials aren't as motivated by previous generations as, just the bottom line, bottom dollar. They're motivated by lots of other things that impact their decision-making process, including, being able to donate their time. So nonprofits aren't just going to read a pamphlet and donate. They want to be on the ground, in the trenches, and they want to feel deeply connected to the organizations that they support. And this is something that's different as well, right? Where previous generations might have had supporters who received the monthly newsletter and sent in that monthly recurring donation, even if it was maybe an online donation. Millennials want to be deeply connected to the organizations that they support. They want to go and be active in the efforts of the nonprofit. If it's a food bank, they want to be at the food bank, volunteering at the food bank, and wearing the T-shirt to the office and talking to their friends about it online. So they want to be deeply connected to those organizations that they support, and creating opportunities for them to do that is paramount to the fundraising process and engaging those donors. So we've come to the time for discussion, and I think this is where the real meat and potatoes of this webinar is gonna come out. We've got a lot of people here who are on the line, and certainly we've noticed some pretty nice sized nonprofits represented. Certainly, I want to preface this discussion with if you have questions and you're for some reason not able to ask on the questions bar, you can always go to GR Office Hours. Use the hashtag GR Office Hours. Or you can tweet at either CommitChange or grassroots.org by just using those handles right there. And again, I want to go back to that one of those first slides about CommitChange. I said by the end of the webinar I want to take a poll who's actually created their free CommitChange profile yet. I guess I wanted your full attention in the webinar, but don't forget, once we hang up here, once we end this webinar, go create a free profile. You can go to commitchange.com. It's completely free. And if you check out the features and decide that you want to upgrade the account, make sure that we know that you attended this webinar, because you'll be able to get a monthly discount that can, if you're going to end up using it for multiple years of fundraising, can result in thousands of dollars in savings as a result of the partnership with Grassroots and CommitChange. So with that, Ben, I don't know if you had any final thoughts, but we'll go ahead and start turning it over to questions. And guys, let's start getting this discussion going. So if you have maybe some thoughts or ideas on fundraising with millennials, or engaging with them, or maybe you're having some struggles and you have some specific questions, let's go ahead and get that going.
Yeah, if you just want to voice your opinion, just write unmute me. We'll unmute you. If you have a question about millennials, we certainly want to take those questions. But if you have anything else about fundraising in general, it doesn't necessarily have to be just about this one specific topic. Office Hours is about talking, about any type of questions you have to build your knowledge in this this practice. But let me ask you a question, Jason, while we wait for some questions to come in, and it goes back to the slide. What might be what kind of knowledge could you use to learn about the building that profile, less religious? How does that help an organization pitch or present their messaging to a particular person? That's one thing that's been in my mind.
I think a great way to just start, if you're wondering about what is the profile of a millennial donor, right, is you can create what you call a user story. Okay, and a user story is, go to one of the conference rooms at your nonprofit, or pull out a dry erase board and draw a picture of somebody. Give them a name. Here's Bill. Okay, Bill is a 28-year-old junior analyst at a financial services company. Bill likes dogs. Bill, and build out this, create a pretend person that could realistically be, a supporter of your organization, and create some stories about, well, Bill, what are some concerns that Bill has? What are some things that are important to Bill? What are some things that kind of make what make him tick as a potential supporter of your organization? And by doing that, you'll come up with some ideas and best practices for, where is the best place to engage Bill, right? And think about your nonprofit and think about your organization, the mission of your organization, right? I know we've got a wide swath of different types of organizations here, from human services to civil rights to children's health. We've got lots of different types of organizations represented. Think about what that donor looks like for your organization, and build out a user story, and build out a few of them, right? Get Bill, get Sally, get Susie, and build out those stories of who these donors actually look like, and what is most likely to engage them to support your organization.
And we have a question from Anthony. I'll just answer it quickly. It's how can I show this webinar to my team? And I can answer that. I will be recording this and editing it down over the next few days. What I do, and if people want to see the webinars previously, they're on our YouTube channel. I will send that out in an email, but it is youtube.com/grassroots.org. The whole thing is spelt out. And what we do with that is, in the description, you'll see timestamps of questions, so you can immediately jump to a question that's relevant to you. I've just noticed people have their hands up, but have not noticed that until now.
Yeah, do you want me to jump in with some of these other questions right away here, Ben?
Yeah, certainly.
I see some have their hands up. I don't know if you want to try to unmute them, or if we just want to go ahead and answer them right from the question section.
Well, I want to make sure that they actually have a question, not unmute them. So, Joseph, if you have a question, can you either post it into the, and this is Joseph Gleason, into the questions pane, or if you can't find that, he actually, Joseph has a problem with getting started with the Bluehost service. Joseph, if you could post in this chat your email address, I'm happy to walk through with you afterwards how to get that going.
Yeah, there's a question from Jessica here. Jessica says that their cancer is small compared to other cancers. Their struggle is elevating it to a level of importance because, number one, it affects 15 to 35-year-olds, and number two, it's preventable or can be caught early if you know about self-examination. So I guess Jessica's concern here is that I guess there's a type of cancer that your nonprofit is either raising awareness or research funding for, and it's I guess she's having difficulty in raising awareness for it because there are so many other larger organizations out there that raise funding and awareness for cancer research, right? And there's two differentiators that she says. Number one, it affects 15 to 35-year-olds, and number two, it's preventable. Well, 15 to 35-year-olds is right smack dab in the middle of that millennial generation, Jessica. And I think one great way to differentiate yourself is to be niche, right? Is to if bigger organizations, you have the American Cancer Center, who's raising 15% of all cancer funding for the entire country. How do you differentiate yourself from that organization? Well, it's to talk about the specific people who it's affecting, and building stories around that are going to resonate with other people who it could potentially affect. So again, it's about telling your story in a way that creates an emotional response from your potential donor. So if your potential donors are millennials and the victims of this type of cancer are millennials, well, that's a story that's easy to create so that it attracts the attention of your target demographic. But again, the way to do that is by creating stories online and then distributing them. And I think a great way to do that for specifically for telling personal stories or sharing personal stories would be YouTube. I think YouTube is a vastly underutilized resource for nonprofits to just capture stories of the people who are being impacted by the disease that nonprofit is trying to cure, or that are benefiting from the services of the organization. So definitely YouTube, something about YouTube, and this is for all the attendees here, YouTube is not about production value. It's not about having the lights and the editing and all of the fancy bells and whistles. It's about the content. It's about conveying a message. And so don't think that you need to have a video production team to start having a YouTube presence for your organization.
So I'm going to unmute Jessica so we can. She has another question, so you can have that the dialogue with her.
Oh, sure.
No, and just let us know if you don't have a microphone, Jessica. But you're unmuted. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, Jessica.
Awesome. Hi, guys.
Hey.
So the other question I had was, we currently have a YouTube page dedicated to telling these stories. We're working on developing a lot more. Two of the things that we have issue with is a lot of people, well, I guess the main issue that we have is a lot of men or males don't like to talk about our cancer. So we are really trying to communicate that, there does not need to be a stigma. Men need to be talking about their health. That's obviously been changing over the past couple of years. We've seen that men are definitely discussing their health and wellness a lot more. But, really kind of getting over that hump of saying it's okay to talk about your body. And we know that we're a little behind like where breast cancer is, but we really want to get to that point where young males feel comfortable with themselves, their bodies, and talking about everything that is them, that is wrong with them, that can be prevented with them. So that's definitely a hump if you have any suggestions on that. But then the other question was back to the YouTube. What is the max amount of time you think is most beneficial to capture that message, that moment, so we don't lose them to cat videos?
Yeah, I think definitely no longer than 2 or 3 minutes. Your best videos, I mean, and the ones that I produce are never longer than a minute. What I do is I just do a quick little intro, make a quick joke to get somebody's attention, and then and then complete the ask or whatever the messages that I'm trying to get across. Certainly if you do have a video that starts to get above that 3 or 4 minute mark, production value then does start to become important. So because at that point they're watching it not just to be informed, they're watching it to be entertained. And so at that point you're going to need to really work on the content and work on the production value of the video. But other than that, I would say certainly no longer than a minute or so for those videos. And yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if off the top of my head I'd have a suggestion for how to get people to talk about something that's difficult to talk about. But certainly, it doesn't necessarily have to be those individuals, being the ones that you're getting on camera, right? If it's something that's, it's like if you're a nonprofit that's raising awareness for domestic violence, you probably don't want to get domestic violence victims, on your YouTube video talking about their personal situation. But there are certainly other ways around that, and this is where too nonprofit staff can come in very handy in helping be creative about ways to articulate that message, so that it gets your voice across. If it's not about we actually had a campaign. I forget what the hashtag was, but it was with the Crittenton Foundation. And it was one of those, it was a domestic abuse nonprofit that was basically trying to raise awareness about how girls matter, right? And they had a hashtag that was Girls Matter. And basically what they did is they asked girls to share their personal stories about a time when they felt strong, right? And it really, it wasn't directly related to the issue that they may have faced, right? But it was raising awareness inadvertently for that actual cause, right? To raise awareness about violence against women. And so the hashtag Girls Matter and girls sharing stories about a moment where they felt strong was something that even if it was one of the victims of domestic violence, they felt comfortable telling a story about how they felt strong much more than they wanted to tell. A positive story is always going to resonate more than a negative story will, right? So think about the people who your nonprofit affects, and think about what triumphs can they celebrate versus I'm Jason and I have this this type of cancer and it's really unfortunate, and if you could donate, please help, right? You'll have much more impact when they're talking about some success or some I have this there's this thing that slows me down, but I don't let it get me down, right? Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yes, thank you.
Jason, can you give me the screen share abilities?
Yeah, sure.
While you do that, Jessica, I don't know if you feel comfortable, but if you could either in the question pane or here tell us what your email is. There's some people who have some advice they'd like to chat with you.
Oh, excellent.
After the webinar. Chris Lopez from grassroots.org, us has some information, and then Faison Uzma has some information. So I'd love to connect you with them after this. And certainly, posting within the hashtag GR Office Hours is going to help, build relationships between different organizations or people who are in this this webinar right now. But I'm going to go to the next person who has a question. It's Joseph Gleason, and I'm going to unmute you now so you can ask your question. Give me 1 second.
By the way, Ben, I made you a presenter there. If you want to grab the screen, you're more than welcome.
Thank you. Joseph, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, hey, Joseph.
Great. Listen, we're ideally located in Central Florida. We've got the Seaplane Pilots Association just relocated here. We have Sun and Fun 2015 coming up. There'll be over 1 million attendees. We're all about trying to get celebrities involved in promoting general aviation through middle school, because we have such a shortage of commercial pilots coming up, and there are a lot of people around the world who just can't afford to get into aviation training, any form of aviation training. We're trying to reach out to them using the name Arthur M. Godfrey because of what he was able to do during his lifetime by using radio and television. So he was the celebrity that promoted general aviation in his time. We want to find the new Arthur Godfrey, and we're having some difficulty reaching out to some celebrities. Now we have Jimmy Buffett, who's going to be performing between Tampa and Orlando at that time. We also have John Travolta, who keeps his airplane here. We are a brand new 501c3, just granted our status in March of last year. We've had some organizational difficulties internally with the president resigning due to health problems, but we'd like some advice on how to reach out to celebrities to help them get involved.
Sure. I've had some limited experience in celebrity outreach. The times that I've actually been successful in recruiting and again, this is like without an introduction, right? Best way you're ever going to have access to a celebrity supporter of your organization is through an introduction. Typically, those introductions can be made through the celebrity's foundation. Most celebrities are going to have their own foundation, and a great place to look for that is, what is the name of that? The Giving Back Fund. So the Giving Back Fund, typically a celebrity is not going to manage their own foundation, right? They're going to have another, like a donor-sponsored organization manage that foundation. But typically, communicating with the celebrity's foundation is going to be the #1 way. The #2 way that, and this is the way that I've actually had a small amount of success in recruiting celebrities to support my organization, is through Twitter. And it's because you can directly engage with a celebrity and you can actually mention them and they'll actually, and if they're the one actually managing their own profile, they'll actually see that message that you wrote, right? And there are very few other formats in web communications where I can send a communication to a celebrity, and they're actually going to be able to read it. And so Twitter has been, the one place where we've had some small amount of success with that.
Well, I appreciate that advice very much. The person who is our new Director of Media Relations is a psychiatrist on Martha's Vineyard, and he was planning to attend, but due to some mix-up in communications, he needed to reschedule an appointment that he had. So I'll certainly pass this information on to him and have him be in touch. And
yeah, definitely tell him to check out. It's thegivingbackfund.org. And there's a list of, basically what they are is a directory of celebrities and their foundations. So if you're, kind of thinking about the type of celebrity who's likely to engage with your nonprofit, if they're in that database, you can probably find their foundation on there.
Okay, appreciate that very much.
Cool.
Before we move on to the next question, some people might have noticed that the screen has changed. If you want to get, and it's a tweet wall. If you want your tweet to go up onto this, you just have to post to hashtag GR office hours, and your tweet will go up there. And that'll help you connect with other people in this webinar. And also for both Jessica and Faison, I've copied your email addresses, and I'll get you in contact after this. I'm going to unmute Shelley Laura in just 1 second. She has 2 questions. Shelley, can you hear us?
Hello, Shelley.
Not sure if Shelley has a microphone. I'll leave her unmuted if she does, but I'll read out her questions right now. The first is, what do you think is a good length for a hashtag, which is appropriate? We just posted our own hashtag thing up here.
Yeah, so the only time I would worry about a hashtag being too long is, remember, you only get 140 characters on Twitter, right? So if your hashtag is save the children today, do it right now, you've already used half of your messaging space on Twitter. But you do want your hashtag to be something that's unique enough to where it's not going to be something that's lumped in, right? If you do hashtag millennials, well, if I'm looking up hashtag millennials conversations that are happening right now on social media, there's thousands, right? So I would say a hashtag that and certainly it needs to be relevant to my organization, and depending on whether you're trying to raise funding or just to try to have a general hashtag for your organization, sometimes hashtags that are a little bit witty can be fun as well. So even if they're not comical, there was one that we had that the campaign that the nonprofit was raising funding for was called 100 Ways and 100 Days. And it was basically 100 different ways to end childhood cancer, and the campaign lasted 100 days. And their hashtag was called 100 Ways, 100 Days. So, it was no more than, 15 or 20 characters. So, again, it wasn't really taking up too much of the messaging space. So I would say try to keep it short and sweet, but don't make it so short that it's not going to be unique.
And there's going to be certain days, thinking back to Giving Tuesday, where using a hashtag sometimes that is general might get you more people into your campaign. So you might also want to consider that. Going back to Jason's point, I chose GR office hours because there was other people posting to office hours, and I didn't want to have that conversation muddled into what we were having on a day like this.
Definitely.
And then Shelley,
we've got lots of questions piling in here, so we better get to them.
Yeah, trying to go through them quickly. But Shelley's next question is: can you explain what an unselfie is and its benefits? Which would be interesting to me because I don't know what an unselfie is either.
Yeah, so an unselfie is a campaign that I forget who launched the unselfie campaign, but basically if an unselfie is rather than just taking a photo of yourself, right? It's taking a photo of yourself holding a message that that is about an organization. So an unselfie is, an unselfie is a hashtag, right? It's just a trending hashtag. But an unselfie would be if I were to take a photo of, and everyone knows what a selfie is, I hope, right? 2015, a selfie is I take a photo of myself using my iPhone, right? An unselfie is if I take a photo of myself holding my iPhone and the message that I'm holding says, X amount of children in Darfur go hungry each day, donate here, hashtag unselfie, right? It's basically a message. An unselfie is basically a message that you can write down on a piece of paper and hold up that piece of paper. And instead of, vainly just posting a picture of yourself on social media, you're posting an important message on social media. So certainly it's, a trending hashtag that just like Giving Tuesday, right? Whenever Giving Tuesday happens and you're posting on social media for your nonprofit, you want to use the hashtag Giving Tuesday. Unselfie is the same thing. It's just a continuously trending hashtag that you can use to promote whatever your content is.
Okay, yeah. It also goes by another name. I believe it's like Why I Do What I Do. And if you search for that, it should bring up a lot of images of people holding up a picture of what it is. The next question comes from Jennifer Forrest. I'm going to find her and unmute her. Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yes, hi, I can hear you. Thank you.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks. This is really informative. My question is coming from my nonprofit is very small. We are just getting started, and we have 0 membership, 0 donors, and we have put like a crowdfunding button on our website, but we're at the point where we don't really have any traffic and no social media really, like we don't have any likes on our Facebook page. So how do we get the momentum going at the beginning stages?
A great way when you're just starting from scratch is to literally go out to your network and make individual asks to share, right? People aren't just going to find an organization and suddenly decide that, like we said, it's not like, people just will see your mission and say, oh, this is worth sharing on Facebook, and it's going to make my, a millennial thinks that, sharing a social media post is being involved with the organization. So, people won't just do it organically if they don't know anything about the organization. So making individual asks to people, even in just your personal network and in the few people that actually are supporters of your organization, could be a great way to get started. I will say this too, is that if you're building a crowd, so one thing that we do at Commit Change is we do some donor matching, and basically, every nonprofit that has a profile on Commit Change is also searchable to our database of donors. And so, if your cause is, let's say it's, children related, well, if a donor is on Commit Change browsing children-related nonprofits, they can organically find you there. So make sure whatever tools you're using to fundraise, that they have their own built-in audience for those tools as well. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Indiegogo because they take a big percentage of each transaction that they process, but Indiegogo is a great tool, that has that community built around it. But certainly, you can, you feel free to make a profile on Commit Change if you need to, get some awareness around that. And actually, you know what, Jennifer, I'd be happy to share your organization. As a millennial, I'd be more than happy to share your nonprofit on my social media profile. So make sure and send me a link to it later.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Appreciate your help and your advice.
Yeah, thanks so much for hanging out.
And Chris Lopez also mentioned to post to the GR office hours. You can get more likes through that to build the community through here.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody's following the hashtag GR office hours, everybody go follow each other on GR office hours, and we can kind of we'll keep that discussion going.
Sam Carter asked, was the website that was discussed maybe a few minutes ago, was that givingbackfund.org?
Givingbackfund.org, that's correct.
Okay.
It might be thegivingbackfund.org. Sam, if you want to send me an email, and I'll find the link and shoot it over to you.
Sure. Well, I'm going through. If anybody else has any questions right now, feel free to either post it into the office hours questions pane or into the hashtag GR office hours. Do you want to do our pop quiz right now? I know we're arriving at an hour and 7 minutes. It'll allow people to think of any final questions. But we would
sure.
like. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say absolutely. If you haven't yet made your commit change profile, or if you have, let us know on the questions session. Especially if you have, all you need to do is if you go to the homepage, just commitchange.com, and click Claim Nonprofit, you can sign up for free for your profile. Check out our tools. If you want a more in-depth walkthrough, be happy to connect with anybody after if you really think it might be a good fundraising strategy for your organization. But I don't have the Ben. You still got control of the screen there, but I'll go ahead and mention what the actual discounted rate is. Basically, as a benefit of being a grassroots.org member, the typical commit change pricing is $79 a month for access to our entire fundraising suite. And if you sign up as a member of Grassroots, you can actually get access to that for $50 a month with no sign-up costs, no annual commitment, and really no hassle in getting set up with some really great tools for fundraising for your organization. So definitely take advantage of that. Ben, we're always happy to offer that to our Grassroots members. We love our commit change users that work with you guys as well.
So we have a follow-up from Joseph. I'm going to unmute him. I have some good things for this, but Joseph, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I went ahead and texted my questions, so if you need to take somebody else and answer theirs, that's fine.
No, that's
and you can just call my text if you want. I'm looking for suggestions on the contact information to send directly to celebrities. And there are a number of those that are listed over the internet that are fee-based, and I don't know how trustworthy they are. Is there some way to vet them?
Yeah, I'd be wary. I'd honestly be wary of paying for celebrity introductions. There are some sites out there that they offer access or offer like a retweet or a share from a celebrity on a website. Off the top, I wouldn't recommend that as a strategy, so I really couldn't tell you a good resource for that. But certainly there are plenty of websites out there that for a set amount you can get a celebrity that is relevant to your organization to tweet for you or retweet a post that you've created. But as far as how to find contact information for those individuals, I wouldn't have any ideas except for getting introductions from people who may currently have relationships.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, if there's a nonprofit that you already know that they support, that nonprofit might be much more willing to make an introduction than that celebrity's agent.
Yeah, we've got some board members that have some connections, and I'll use those. But for the connections that they don't have, I was looking for another source.
Yeah, so and I have some, because I've done this prior, not necessarily with celebrities, but maybe some executives for an organization. There's a few things you can utilize to do it. So I'll say you can use and just Google this, an email verification system. What you'll do is you'll take the domain name and then stick different ways of their name onto it, and you will get an OK on this. And I'll tweet that out, or I'll put it into an email later. But what I would say with this is to be careful with this, because a lot of people will either screen that or they don't want to necessarily receive your emails. It might turn them off to your organization if they're not expecting that. Ways that you might want to go about it, and Jason pointed out trying to build relationships through other people, but using something like Twitter. A lot of people will have that discussion, that initial discussion with you through just contacting them or shouting them out on Twitter or messaging them on LinkedIn. I know from LinkedIn there is a section that will post, and I don't know about celebrities, but will post their preferred means of contacting. It could say they don't want to be contacted by email, they want to be contacted through their LinkedIn or through their Facebook, and to reach out with them, and that'll give you the best way to talk to them.
Okay, appreciate that.
You're welcome. The next question.
Jim here asked if commit change interfaces with Salesforce. Jim Huckill. And Jim, we have a way that you can easily export all your data on a regular basis into Salesforce. We have a lot of nonprofits that use both Salesforce and commit change. Typically, they'll use commit change for all their front-end fundraising tools, and then Salesforce for kind of their data management. But yeah, we can easily integrate your data into Salesforce. And Jessica, I'm sorry, I'll just grab this next one too, sure. Ben. Jessica just had a great tip for the last question, is that if you do a free 30-day trial of imdb.com, you might be able to grab some more contact info for those influencers that you want to have access to.